Good morning, everyone. I wanted to take a few minutes this morning to dissect the presidential debate, take a look at what that has to do with Cringe Moment Conversations, and provide a brief, if you will. So my name is Rachel Shamming, and I am an executive coach, and I work with leaders faced with Cringe Moment Conversations. And today we want to take a look at the debate and the impact we are experiencing. This is not a political discussion or commentary. Rather, it's a dive into the human impact when we are subjected to prolonged negative conduct. 73 million of us watched the debate. What did we see, hear, and feel during the 90 minutes of that prolonged exposure? This in itself is an impact. 90 minutes of vitriolic language is far worse than a single incident that may only be a moment or two. I see Karen is here. Good morning, Karen. So we saw posturing, we saw raised voices, we saw finger pointing. What did we hear? We heard a tremendous amount of vitriolic offensive language. We saw name calling. What did we feel? We felt everything except happiness and joy. We felt shock. We felt disbelief, embarrassment, powerless, vulnerable, hurt, anger, disoriented, and many more negative feelings. In a deeply destabilizing year, we yearn for our role models to provide a measure of stability and a path to the future. We have all been enduring COVID-19. We've seen enormous deaths around the world. It's over 1 million deaths now. We see unemployment has been increasing. Racism has raised its ugly head again, and it's a federal election year in the United States. So what we were observing can trigger our own life experiences of past abuse or poor relationships, either work or personal. Perhaps it's an unresolved issue. Oh, I see Sonia Waterman is here. Sonia is a niece of mine, and she lives in England. Great. So Karen is commenting about we have all of these feelings. We have so many feelings that are just swirling around. Let's take a look at the dysfunctional triangle we observed with the president, Joe Biden, and Chris Wallace. We saw constant interruptions. Interruptions are an indication of disinterest in hearing another person and an act of dominance. If you've been in a conversation with someone who's constantly interrupting, you really do feel like this person doesn't care at all about me or doesn't care about my thoughts. Corrosive behaviors that psychologists call these the 4 horsemen. No emotional safety, no regard for safety, no empathy, no trust, no hope. Those are the four factors that are corrosive, that lead to destructive and destroyed relationships. When we're under attack, we can't really have a real conversation. Our emotions are escalated, our we incur mental fog. It's difficult to think clearly and frame articulate responses. We wanted the moderator, Chris, to intervene, to set boundaries and consequences. Let me give you an example of what that might look like if you were following a cringe moment conversation. Boundaries. One time, with a misstep of interruption or name calling, the mic is turned off for a minute. 2 times, the mic is turned off for 2 minutes. The 3rd time, the debate is ended by the moderator, because that is an indication that those are not interested in conducting themselves respectfully. So how do cringe moment competencies support us when faced with a challenging conversation? For one thing, we learn how to set boundaries, whether we are in a facilitator role or we are participating in the conversation. We learn the language to use. how to open the conversation, conduct the conversation, and close the conversation. We learn how we can have a difference of opinion. It doesn't mean the other person is flawed and that they have absolutely no redeeming qualities. We learn what to do when another person loses it or they begin to attack us. So what are the lessons we have learned from this presidential debate? Well, the first one is that we cannot change the conduct of a leader that we don't have direct contact with. We can choose to model respectful and kind behavior towards all, even when they have a strong difference of opinion. We see such divisive language now, particularly in the United States with this election. Friendships have been severed. Family relationships are tanked. So what can we do? We can set limits on exposure to toxic situation. For instance, limit times when you are watching things. My good friend Lisa Eklund chose not to watch the debate. She knew she would get updates on Facebook and the news, but she chose not to expose herself to what she felt and was right would be a very toxic situation. So set limits on exposure to these toxic situations. Make sure you're taking care of yourself with good nutrition. There's a lot of baking going on now with our COVID sequestering. Make sure you have hobbies that you're interested in. Maybe you want to learn a new hobby. One of my new hobbies, I guess you would call it, is a new baby beagle. He's a year old, but yes, he is, he's a lot of fun, and he certainly is a distraction from any kind of toxic vitriol that might be on TV. Practice some form of physical exercise, whether it be walking or running or yoga, working out in some way, walking the dog. Emotional support for yourself is very important. Listen to music, talk to friends, write. Some people love to journal, read things that are interesting and could be distracting. So I'm seeing some Tiffany says she loves my bagel. Isn't it wonderful to love my bagel? And Jennifer, thanks for addressing this topic. This is a topic that throws us off balance for sure. Hi, Jane. I haven't seen you and talked with you in a long time. And so I've talked about nutrition, hobbies, physical, emotional, mental. Mental is where we can get all of these thoughts going that can be so demoralizing. Learn something new. Maybe you want to learn a new language. Maybe you want to learn some kind of new skill. Maybe you want to learn more about Cringe Moment Conversations. And I have a wonderful 6-week course coming up that I'd love to have you in. More than anything, we know each other. We know that this has thrown us off balance, but we can support each other. Our differences, in spite of our political views and backgrounds, it's really that we accept each other and that we honor that it's perfectly okay to have a difference of opinion, but it isn't okay to attack someone. I would love to have the opportunity to connect with you more, and I invite you to learn more about Cringe Moment Conversations. This is where you will learn what to do, and you will learn the language that we all need to have when we are faced with these cringe moment conversations. Karen is saying that self-care is so important now more than ever. If there is any question that you would like to pose in the chat, that would be great before we close out for this morning. I see Marissa is watching. Paula Barnes is watching. These are past relationships that I haven't heard from in a long time. Any particular question? with that, let me close and wish you a wonderful weekend. I want you to take away that while we do feel powerless and we feel incredibly vulnerable, now is the time more than anything that you haven't, that we may not have done before, that we really are conscious to reach out to others. So Karen is asking, what do you do when you are in a cringe moment conversation that you haven't prepared for? Sometimes these things happen very quickly. It's not that you get a notice like in 30 days you're going to have this conversation. What you can do when you are suddenly faced with a cringe moment conversation is, I call it the 4P model. First of all, pause. Be really clear about what emotions you are feeling. Be very clear about whether you want to retaliate and or seek revenge. Sometimes it's absolutely essential to say, I need time to think about this. I'd like to get back with you. And you set a time that would be fairly close. After that gives you time to prepare. The pause is so critical. So when you are preparing, you are thinking about, who do I really want to be in this conversation? Do I want to be positive? Do I want to be someone who really is wanting to resolve an issue? And what do I really want for this other person? Things like where you're going to have the meeting. Today, it's a Zoom room versus a conference room. And the time of day, you want to think about what's on the other person's plate. Maybe they're educating children. And then you enter the conversation. Making notes or having a script and knowing the language to start is so critical. I want to bring to your attention, or I need to talk with you about something that's weighing on my mind. By saying I am owning my feelings rather than you really irritated me when you disagreed with me in the meeting. That's going to set us down a path of non-success when we start that type of language. So I want you to take away today that these are skills we can learn. I wasn't born knowing how to have a cringe moment conversation. Quite the opposite. I was terrified of these things. But I knew I could learn these skills and that I can be of support to others. So when these situations happen, sometimes we are at our worst. Like when we feel we're being attacked, we may be at our worst. We saw that in the presidential debate. We saw how the propensity to, when I feel attacked, I may resort to name calling or some other type of demeaning behavior. That's not what we want to be, how we want to be in a cringe moment. And we don't want to respond to that. So it's very important that we prepare, that we feel calm, and that we come out of the other side. And if things really go south in a cringe moment conversation, timeout is your best gift. You can ask for timeout. That gives you time to pause, reflect, plan, and to prepare your talking points or your script. So if any of you would like to continue this type of conversation about what we're seeing and what we're feeling, feel free to reach out and we can figure out a way to maybe connect on Zoom. As I said at the start, this is not about a political discussion. It's about the impact on all of us when our collective humanity, when we see these things happening at the very top of leadership. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and the weekend, and that if I can be of any support whatsoever, please do reach out. Bye for now.